Let me start by saying I'm not a poet. I'm a storyteller. But over the years, primarily from my work on the radio, I've discovered that some stories are better told as poetry. And that's how this first poem came about. It's called Ground Zero, a poem in 3 parts. Ground Zero. 1. Drawing class. See, she said, before we ever put pencil to paper. See the object, not the symbol. See beyond the word. See, she said. 2. Ground Zero. 10:01:01. I park on the far edge of Chinatown. Chinatown. Noise, bustling, smells. 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 Fruit from a vendor's cart, fried duck and pork from a restaurant door, the salty smell of fresh fish sold at street-side markets, the overpowering smell of incense as I pass a Buddhist center. Further on, as I get closer, the faint smell of smoke. I steel myself. A friend has warned me about the smell that emanates from Ground Zero. Flyers taped to windows, pictures of loved ones still missing. I think I must be looking at pictures of the dead. Down a side street, a huge flag draped over the front of an old brick building, twisting, turning, in a beautifully choreographed liquid movement. The red, white, and blue has never looked so red, white, and blue as it does against this sky's gray. Vendors selling patriotic memorabilia, red, white, and blue, ribbons, pins, flags, New York Fire and Police Department baseball caps. I feel I should be angry at this display of capitalistic opportunism, but I'm not. Life, as usual, in unusual circumstances. Getting closer, turning down Chambers Street, I see a knot of people below. This signals that this is where Ground Zero can be seen. I get there. I glimpse hell. In a small park behind me, beings, men or women, I can't tell, in bright white coveralls and gas masks, pick stones out of a shallow trench. Odd. Chilling. A woman in a black coat, her hand pressed to her face, trying to stifle the oncoming flood of tears and sobs, crushes a bouquet of magenta-colored flowers underneath her arm. I push on toward Broadway. I pass a firehouse and a church, both converted to shrines for 3,000, for the past, for a former way of life. I make my way to Maiden Lane. I've been told that this is the place to see Ground Zero from a distance. From a distance. I'm still 3-4 blocks away. Maiden Lane. When I hear the words Maiden Lane, I think of innocence, freshness, newness. Maybe it's appropriate. New beginnings. My mind slips back to Beatrice and the Inferno, Dante's Inferno. The website map shows rings of access. I saw it and thought of all the illustrations I had ever seen for the Inferno. And now, here I stand, looking down into hell. Across the way, steel fingers of what's left of the World Trade Center reach up out of the chaos. But for me, it always comes back to words. Walking down Broadway on 5 aluminum columns in front of one building, someone has written, with masking tape letters, 5 words. The first is partially covered by a sheet of paper. On the paper, a prayer, and under it, I can see H-I. It says hit. The second column, Y, W-H-Y. The next, the third, look, with an arrow underneath it, pointing to the west, toward hell. The fourth, learn, with part of the R torn away. The last, the fifth column, numb. Numb. Words, phrases, symbols. 3, understanding. Don't just look at the object, my drawing teacher admonished. Don't just see the symbol. See, she said. See. That poem actually was an introduction to my first program after 9/11. Somewhat modified. I happened to have Ann Yarmel, one of the founders of Poem Alley, in the studio that night. And after I finished the introduction, she leaned over to me and said, you know, with a little changes here and there, that could be a poem. So shortly after that, I started attending Curly's Diner on Tuesday nights, and the rest is history.